Throughout this creative process, I feel as though the main skill I have learned is how to use all the technical aspects in order to add meaning to our film. You can see the difference in the shots and angles in our preliminary task and our main task. In our preliminary task, we used lots of different shot types and angles, as we thought that this would help to make it look more interesting. However, I think that this made it look messy, especially when the two boys in our preliminary task are talking, as fast-paced cuts are used, so you're watching quick shots of them talking from all different distances and angles, which could be confusing to some people. This was useful when filming our opening sequence, as it helped us to become aware that different shots can be used to show connotations of different characters and locations. For example, the long shot of the spies leaving the MI6 building shows the audience that they are spies. When watching our preliminary task, you can tell that it does not have a storyline to it. I think that this made it seem boring to the audience watching it. Therefore, when making our opening sequence, we made sure that we had an interesting storyline that could be easily understood by our viewers, as we realised that just by placing clips in a certain order can help to make a film more effective. When making our preliminary task, we did not plan any props, costumes or locations. I think that if we had planned and used these effectively in our opening sequence, then it would be far more interesting than it is. So when we were making our opening sequence, we made sure that we planned and prepared for these things in advance. I think that this helped to make our opening sequence more successful, as the costumes helped to show the representations of the characters, such as the smart clothing of the spies to show that they are professional, and the props and locations helped the audience to understand the storyline. Our preliminary task helped us to learn that music helps to add to the tone of the film. We used GarageBand to make the music. In the music for our preliminary task, we had the same loop repeating itself throughout. This did not help to keep our audience interested in our video, so in our opening sequence we made sure that we had lots of different instruments playing. We also had the different loops starting and stopping in time with the shots in our film to help make the people watching understand our storyline even more, such as when the bass is played on its own when the criminal is being chased to help build tension. I feel as though this helped to add depth and meaning to make our music more interesting than before. In our preliminary task, we wanted the titles to look as interesting as possible, so we used a fancy white font, which was quite bold. However, when watching this back, we realised that this drew attention to the titles, which we did not want, as the titles are not the main feature. Therefore, when creating the titles for our opening sequence, we used a white sans serif font with a black outline so that the titles were visible but not too eye-catching, as we did not want them to draw any attention away from any of our shots. During the editing process, I feel as though I have learned a lot about After Effects. When making our preliminary task, we did not experiment with After Effects instead we created it using Adobe Premiere Pro. I feel as though our preliminary task looks boring and could have been improved if we had used After Effects, so when we were making our opening sequence, we made sure that we used After Effects. We experimented with After Effects after watching tutorials which helped us to create our type-on type-off text, our glitchy text and our recording screen. This helped to show editing for meaning in our film. For example, the recording screen shows the audience that the criminal is being watched. Although all films use a lot of editing, we felt as though our film had a complicated storyline, so editing would be an effective way to help make it more understandable. We also knew that if we wanted to keep our audience engaged in our film from the start, then we needed to make it seem as interesting as possible, and felt as though editing would help us to do this.